our viewers across Nigeria, around the world, and of course, Nigerians in diaspora in particular, don't forget to join the conversation using the hashtag #ElectionCentral. My guest today is Festus Okoye. He's the chairman of INEC, of the Independent National Electoral Commission's Information and Voter Education Committee. Festus, you're welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with something that has happened quite recently, and that's the deadline for the collection of the permanent voter cards. And the deadline was Sunday, February the 5th. So with close to 93.5 million registered voters, if you have the data at hand now, have we seen a relatively corresponding collection rate play out across the country?
Well, the collection of PVCs has been very wonderful. Most of the PVCs that have been collected are the PVCs of those who registered between the 28th day of June 2021 and 31st day of July 2022. We have recorded tremendous collection process relating to them. But for the PVCs that were carried over from 2011 up to the 2019 general election, the collection of those PVCs has not been really too encouraging. We have also had a very high collection rate relating to those who carried out transfer and those whose PVCs were damaged or defaced and who asked for a replacement of their PVCs. So these are the ones we have had a very high collection. What the Commission is doing as at present is harvesting the number of PVCs collected across all the states of the Federation for purposes of publishing them. For all the uncollected PVCs, we are going to cluster them together, count them, and then deposit in the central bank till the elections are over. This is because we are going to make available to Nigerians the data of collected PVCs and the data of uncollected PVCs for Nigerians to know the number of PVCs collected and uncollected as we go into the 2023 general election.
Okay, that's interesting to know, because I was going to ask you about particularly the states with the largest number of registered voters, but it seems we'll have to wait for that information. But let me ask about the demographic now. We've seen that the demographic of 18 to 34 are those who are the most newly registered and largest demographic with this particular election. In terms of what you've seen so far, even though we've heard of issues with collection with this particular demographic, have they turned out to collect their PVCs?
Well, we are really encouraged that a lot of our young men and women engage the electoral process robustly this time around. If you recall, for the first time in the history of this country, for the first time in the history of the electoral process, we created a portal for online pre-registration. And a lot of the young men and women utilized this particular opportunity and went online and carried out their registration before going to our local government offices to go and do their biometrics. And so we are really encouraged by this. They have also turned out in mass to collect their permanent voters' cards. But our plea is that they must try as much as possible to engage the electoral process. Collection of PVC is one thing. Showing up on election day is another thing. We want to counsel and advise that our PVCs are not souvenirs. Our PVCs are not alternative identity card. Our PVCs cannot be used for purposes of banking transactions. Our PVCs are for voting and for voting purposes alone. And so, collect your PVC, show up on election day, exercise their democratic franchise, and be part of this movement for a new Nigeria. That is what we are asking. And the young men and women who have registered en masse should be part of this process of electoral change in this country, because we have engaged them and we have engaged them robustly, and we want them to show up and show up on election day.
And you certainly have hit the nail on the head. Registering is one thing, collecting is another, and then showing up to exercise the votes is another. But I need you to quickly weigh in on something before we leave the PVC collection. So on social media, there's something that's been trending, and I don't know if INEC has taken notice of this. So some social media users are advising those who have confirmed their name on the voters register and know their VIN number, but weren't able to get their PVCs, that they should go and independently print their PVC. That the card is simply used for identification on voting day and doesn't have any biometric data attached. And there are those who have even offered to print look-alike PVCs. So Festus, I really need you to come in here, and so people know what INEC stance is on this. Is this something that's going to be allowed?
Let me make this very clear. that if you look at section 21 of the Electoral Act, it is clear that the proprietary right in any voter's card issued to any voter shall vest in the commission. If you also look at section 16, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act, it is clear that the commission shall design, cause to be printed, and control the issuance of voters' cards to voters whose names appear in the register. No individual, no agency, no commission, no business center is authorized under any guise whatsoever to print or cause to be printed, to authorize or cause to authorize the printing of any permanent voter's card. Any individual or any organization or any business center that attempts to do that is engaged in an electoral infraction, and the commission will not hesitate to prosecute such an individual. The only permanent voter's card that is allowed to be presented on election day are the permanent voters' cards printed by the commission, permanent voters' cards authorized by the commission, and the permanent voters' card whose proprietary right resides with the commission. That is the only permanent voters' card that is allowed on election day. Those who are engaged in misinformation and disinformation should desist, because anybody who comes to the polling unit on election day with a voter's card not issued by the commission will definitely be arrested. And people should be mindful of falling into the hands of people peddling fake news and spreading both who are engaged in misinformation and disinformation.
Okay, and I really do hope that those who are listening will also understand that that is really putting that issue to the rest. Now, INEC offices across the country have been attacked in the past 2 to 3 years, with last year seeing a wave of attacks, an increase really, that is. The most recent one was in Anambra State just about a week ago, and before that in Enugu State about 2.5 weeks ago. For the registered voters who had not collected their PVCs from those affected areas, has INEC been able to reprint? Will voters in these areas be able to exercise their democratic franchise and take part in the elections?
I hope you can see me, but I will just continue, bending the time they bring light. The truth of the matter is that, yes, it is true that the commission has suffered the attacks in these local government and state offices. But in all these places, what the commission has done is to harvest the number of PVCs that have not been collected during this particular period. And for all those ones that have been harvested, we have reprinted them. We have reprinted the PVCs of those whose PVCs were burnt in our Abeokuta South local government office of Ogun State. We've reprinted the PVCs of those whose cards were burnt in our IC local government office of Ebonyi State. We've reprinted the ones whose PVCs were burnt in some of our offices in Imo State. And so we have reprinted all these PVCs. And then for some of our offices that we can fix during this particular period, we have fixed them. For those we cannot fix, we have moved to safe locations. And for some of the material destroyed in this during this particular period, we have also replaced some of these materials. And so we see all these things as a distraction. We see these things as being done by anti-democratic forces to distract the commission from focusing on conducting free, fair, verifiable, and inclusive election. And we are not going to be deterred. The election is just 15 days away. We are preparing, and we are preparing well, and we are not going to give up, because giving up is not an option. Postponing or rescheduling the election is not an option. This commission is committed to conducting the election on the 25th of February and the 11th of March 2023. Those days are fixed, those days are fair, and we are proceeding at peace.
So let's come to something that's generated a lot of controversy and reaction, particularly in Lagos State. And that's because the commission announced that it would be working with the Lagos State Parks Management Committee to distribute election materials and personnel. So what really is the INEC's response, particularly to the concerns and criticisms of this decision? How would you allay the fears of people about the potential for compromise in this kind of situation? We know, of course, Olusegun Agbaje, who's the Lagos INEC resident commissioner, announced this and has been very clear that they're not working with an individual, but rather working with that organization to distribute. How do you allay fears, Festus?
No, I think we need to put the issue in context. We have 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. In all these states, and throughout this particular period, ranging from even 2015 elections up to this particular period, we have always used drivers for purposes of distributing election materials. For the 2023 general election, the Commission needs at least 138,000 vehicles. We're also going to hire at least 4,000 boats, and we are going to hire at least 88,000 motorcycles to move our personnel and also move our materials across all the states of the Federation. We have an MOU with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, and that MOU is for them to act as if you permit me to use the word, to put an eye on some of their members to make sure that they do what is right. Mm-hmm. We have a contract with individual drivers. Each driver that is going to convey any of our materials will be given a contract to sign. So our contract is between the individual driver and the Commission, and not with the union. What we have with the union is what we call a memorandum of understanding relating to the fact that if they are, we have hired a particular vehicle and they know their members, and the person does not show up on election day, they will assist us and call the person and find out why the person has not showed up on election day. For states that do not have the National Union of Road Transport Workers, what we need is a situation where we can be sure that a particular driver belongs to the union, or a particular driver can be located on election day, so that the driver does not collect our money and disappear. Mm. We're also profiling all those drivers through the Federal Road Safety Commission. They will profile them individually and also make sure that the vehicles that are producing are roadworthy. So we have contracts with individual drivers. The National Union of Road Transport Workers do not have vehicles. The individuals have. The National Association of Road Transport Owners do not drive vehicles. The individuals do. So it is those drivers that we have contract. What we have with the unions and any other organ or any other agency is a memorandum of understanding. But in terms of moving our election material, in terms of moving our election petition, election personnel, it is with the individual drivers that we have a contract.
So just for further clarity, that basically means that it's not a Lagos issue. This is the same sort of formula that INEC is replicating across the country in order to move materials and personnel. Am I correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So let's come to more recent events. So the Commission recently conducted a mock accreditation exercise across the country, but this also came very shortly after the Election Tribunal verdict in Osun State that raised concerns about the BVAS machine, that's the bivodio machine that's going to accredit and that's going to be used during the elections. So I have to ask you this, in terms of Osun and the mock exercise, what lessons did INEC learn that it hopes to put into play to ensure a smooth run for the 2023 elections and also hand over very credible and fair election results come February and March 2023?
You know, basically, fundamentally, I'm a lawyer, and I'm also a very senior lawyer. And part of our process and part of our procedures and part of our training is not to comment on a live issue. When a matter has been handed over to the courts, we must, as a matter of fact, allow the judicial process to run its course. I have also said, and I'll continue to say, that one of the things we must do as a people and as a nation is to have faith in our democratic institutions. As an individual, I've read the Osun judgment, and I have my own views, personal views relating to the Osun judgment. But my views at this point in time are completely immaterial. What is material is the views of the Commission. If there are any lessons to be learned from the Osun governorship election, we are going to learn those lessons. If there are things that we need to improve on going forward, we are going to improve on those things. But in terms of commenting more concretely on the specific issues arising from the Osun governorship election petition judgment, we need to wait the Court of Appeal and also possibly the Supreme Court to have a finality relating to it. We carried out mock accreditation in all the states of the Federation and in all the senatorial districts of the Federation on the 4th day of February 2023. And what we did basically was to test whether and to check whether the upgrade we did both with the hardware and the software of the beavers has been really captured. And whether people, registered voters, are being authenticated using our beavers in a manner that meets with our own expectation. And I want to say, without any fear of equivocation, that we are happy with the performance of the beavers in terms of the speed of the beavers, in terms of the robust nature of the beavers, also in terms of the reliability of the beavers in capturing people's fingerprints and also capturing their facial. It is very clear that in almost all the states of the Federation, in almost all the places where people turned up, we recorded, I think, only two issues. And it was very clear, even for observers who observed the issue, that the person or the persons who came with the permanent voters' cards to the polling unit were not those who carried that accreditation, but their names were on the beavers and they were on the register. But the beavers was able to detect the fact that they were engaged in identity theft and that they are not who they purport to be. So we are very, very excited and pleased at the fact that our beavers is performing well, and we are confident that the beavers will perform well during the 2023 general election. Not only that, we have the full complement of the beavers that we are going to deploy to the 176,846 polling units across the Federation. We also have redundancies for the 8,809 registration areas of the Commission, and we're also going to keep some in our local government offices. All these beavers have been tested and certified, and we are going to configure all of them to specific polling units throughout the Federation. And in terms of this election, I can assure you and assure the nation that we are almost ready for the election.
All right, Festus, before I let you go very quickly, I think it's important to also ask about the legacy that INEC wants to leave, particularly with this election. Many have said it's a pivotal election. You have the most young people who are participating. It's such a critical time, and there are a lot of eyes on Nigeria as it is now. So what do you think the legacy of INEC is or will be in this particular election? Just very quickly as we wrap up.
Maybe I think it's the business of Nigerians to make a determination on that. But there are three issues involved. One, we want to increase voter participation and voter engagement in the electoral process. Secondly, we want our elections to be technology driven. And thirdly, we want to leave a commission where a national commissioner cannot, under any circumstance, determine the voting pattern or the outcome of any election in any polling unit. For me, these are the three issues we are looking at.
All right, Festus Okoye, we'll leave it at that. Just less than 17 days, and I know that you're going to be very busy, but we hope that we'll also be able to talk to you in the lead up to the days ahead of the elections as we continue to make sure there's clarity and understanding about how Nigerians are going to vote.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.